I used AI to design dresses for me, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I took this design and brought it to life. So gather round because it's story time. I embarked on a quest as epic as any fantasy adventure. Armed with my mouse and keyboard, I delved deep into the wilderness of fabric hunting, seeking the elusive green suede fabric. I looked high and low, here and there, and somewhere along the way, I took a wrong turn and found myself among other humans. This was clearly unacceptable, and I needed to get out of there quickly. Finally, in the digital world, the fabric started to show itself to me. The hunt was on. Days turned into more days as I navigated a sea of listings with obnoxiously long descriptions. Then, just as I was about to give up, I spotted a listing for actual green suede fabric. Granted, it was definitely upholstery fabric, but it seemed too good to be true. With bated breath and a clicking finger that had seen better days, I placed an order. The anticipation was palpable as I awaited delivery, wondering if I'd finally hold the mythical green suede in my hands. When the package arrived, I tore it open like the ravaging animal that I am. There it was. Green suede. The real deal, not a mirage in the digital desert. I held the fabric like a treasure and gently caressed it to ensure it had proper softness. Nap. But the buttons I found on Amazon. This was no ordinary sewing project. This was a quest for the ages, a battle of wills between a determined sewist and a piece of fabric that was resistant to the transformation that it needed to go through. Armed with the scissors and a pattern in hand, I took a deep breath and set out to make this AI dress into a reality. First challenge lay before me, cutting out the dress panels. I laid out the delicate pattern pieces onto the suede, determining how to solve the puzzle before me. The tension in the room was almost overwhelming as I hesitated, wondering if I had the courage to make that first snip. With a mixture of excitement and anxiety, I severed the fabric. It was a heart-pounding moment as I hoped I hadn't made a mistake that would doom the entire project. The next challenge was both unexpected, yet inevitable, as at some point I noticed the sewing room was no longer a sanctuary of solitude. It had transformed into a bustling playground for my kids, who had decided that this was the perfect time for a grand adventure of their own. As I began cutting out the interfacing with focused precision, the pitter-patter of tiny feet echoed through the room. The little ones had deemed this moment to be an ideal time to require my attention. My pattern weights had suddenly become the stars of an impromptu game. As if the pattern weight parade wasn't enough, the entire family had seemingly declared this moment as prime bonding time. My husband strolled into the room to inventory his painting supplies and engage in conversation about the day's events while I shooed the littlest one away from my workstation. It was all too exciting. Before this dress could be sewn, it was essential that I attach the interfacing to the fabric. Piece after piece, I merged the all-too-willing interfacing with the unsuspecting fabric. With the panels neatly cut, I moved on to sewing them together. The machine's rhythmic hum filled the room as I guided the fabric under the needle. The sweat formed on my brow as I worried about every stitch. One wrong move, and I would be unpicking seams for the foreseeable future. The true moment of despair arrived with the pockets. Oh, the pockets! The delight of any dress. That is, until you realize you've sewn them on inside out. It was a devastating moment when I realized I had sewn every piece of the pocket with the wrong side facing up. My life was over. How was I to face unpicking all those tiny stitches? With all the motivation lost, I walked away and let the half-made dress sit in its own gloom and turmoil. Until a month later, when I worked up the courage to unpick those awful stitches. After I had the pockets sewn on, the right way this time, it was time to make the straps. And this time, I was determined to not make any mistakes. The room was filled with an air of absurd determination as I carefully aligned them and basted them in place. With the straps loosely attached, I tried on the dress. It was a beautiful fit. The straps needed some adjustment. With the straps in place, and my pockets looking exceptional, it was time to finish this portion of the dress. With a sigh, I prepared to sew them in place while attaching the facing. My fingers felt like they had a mind of their own as I wrestled with the straps. After much sewing, the facing panel was in place. My heart sank as I realized that it was now time to face the dreaded hemming of this dress. With my iron on high and my pins in hand, I folded and folded, then pressed and pinned. I noticed while I was sewing the hem in place that I happened to be running low on thread. It would seem I was about to engage in a game of chicken with the bobbin. After every few minutes of sewing, I checked. There was still thread on the bobbin. Oh, the sweat beaded on my forehead as I sewed this hem. It was time for the moment of truth. I won the game of chicken. And just like after every good game, it's important that the players refuel. The buttonholes were their own challenge, and I felt like a surgeon performing delicate operations on my creation. Now came the time to add the buttons, and my earlier triumph turned into mild panic as I realized I'd sewn on buttons of 2 different sizes. Panic washed over me as I realized that yet again, I had to unpick all the work I had just done. With determination to not quit this time, I picked every last wrong-sized button. Now with the proper sized buttons attached down the front, there were only 2 more buttons to go at each strap. An odd placement for random buttons, in my opinion. But who am I to question the fashion and decisions of the great and powerful tools of AI? One last quest stood in the way of me bringing this adventure to a close. Creation of the belt emerged as both a challenge and an adventure. It was essential that the buckle prong could move freely, a detail that added both functionality and style to the design. A buttonhole, carefully stitched with precision, provided the necessary space for the prong's journey. It was a small, yet critical detail. With steady hands, I stitched the flap of the buckle closed, each thread a labor of love, each stitch binding the belt's story together. It was the grommets that tested my patience. The tool required for attaching the grommets was failing miserably. I created tiny holes with a different tool that were proving to be a disaster. Frustration danced at the edge of my patience until my husband, with a twinkle of mischief in his eyes, took the reins for a moment. With a pound of a hammer, he managed to make the proper tools work perfectly. My husband returned to his work, leaving me yet again to wonder, what would I ever do without this man? But oh, the grommets themselves, these small, unassuming discs of metal, had personalities of their own. Some agreed to be tamed, their holes aligning with grace, while others chose a crooked path, refusing to conform to the belt's plan. With the belt assembled, my ensemble was complete. It was time to give the people what they came for. The final reveal. Are you ready? He loves me not. He loves me not. He married me. What am I doing? I had in my mind what I believed to be the most epic poses for my dress. I needed to scale my retaining wall, and I did it with such grace and finesse. And I ended up with these beautiful, amazing poses. And everything was fine and dandy until I had to scale down. More on that in a minute. Okay. I went to Goodwill to buy these shoes so that I could model this for you guys. And I can't walk in these shoes. I don't know how people do this. This is insane. I will show you these shoes. Do you see that heel? That heel is the fattest heel I've ever worn. And by fat, I mean really, really tall. I don't know how you guys be out here walking in these. I can't do it. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.